Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mega Man 3 Buster Only Tournament match between KLM1187 and Lightgod87. I gotta do a bit of cropping here. Good evening, everyone, and I've got my stream up. Shit. There we go. Alright, that's close. That's not exact on KLM's side. I will fix that as it comes. Let me just grab chat real quick. Oops. Something has definitely failed in the capture of these windows. So I'm going to start all over. Luckily, we won't be starting for a while, or a little while anyway. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Perfect. All right, we're looking good. So at this point, we're just kind of waiting for the race to start. Good, it looks like both racers are kind of ready, and it looks like I've got the cropping kind of all wrong. That doesn't matter. I will be changing it as I need to. Unfortunately, Rockman 3 is one of those video games where the title screen is all black around, so you can't really tell what's happening with your cropping until it's too late. Hey, what's up, Tired Monkey? I'm afraid we're not going to hear any songs tonight. You know what? I've had a couple of beers, so maybe it will happen. I don't think it will happen. I gotta get better at singing them first, unfortunately, for everyone involved. Now everyone wants me to sing. This is just great. It's actually not going to happen, so thank you all for your concern. But I can't. I literally can't. Alright, I'm just telling the racers that I don't have the IRC program that would allow me to tell when the race is going to start. So I just told them to start kind of whenever they feel like it. I can't minimize Discord, which is a pretty cool feature, I think. But I'm definitely ready to go. The race here today is between KLM1187, the highest seeding player, coming into the final round, and I think into the group stage of this tournament as well. KLM is a very dominant player in this category for sure, but this is a loser's bracket match, which means that KLM was defeated earlier in this tournament. So anything can happen, as they say. It's 9 o'clock, so I feel like the racers will be starting very soon. And it looks like it has begun. Alright. Just give me a second to get everything all cropped nice and ready, and then I will begin commentating in earnest. Oh, well, we're in Gemini, so I can't tell where the bottom of the stage is, but that's fine. Give it a little bit more. Well, KLM, I don't know what's going on with your stream, but you're getting big black bars. So it looks like both racers are taking the Gemini first route. This is Buster only, so it doesn't matter super duper much which route you take, because you're not going to be able to use any of the boss robots or the Robot Master's weapons against any other Robot Masters. So all the boss fights should take the same time, no matter which route you do. The music is stopped here. That's because of the music despawn glitch. It's a glitch you can do in this stage and a couple others, where you skip the cutscene where Proto Man tells you something. And the music ends up stopping, and that's a very good thing for this stage, because, as you'll see in a little bit, this stage actually gets very, very lag intensive, and the less processing the NES has to do, the better. So this is one of the few instances in the Buster-only run where you have to switch to another weapon. You need Rush Coil, or Rush Jet, I guess, to get up to that platform. So this does not disqualify the runners. Normally, in the Buster-only rule set, you're not supposed to switch to any weapon unless it's absolutely necessary. And in that part of the game, it is absolutely necessary. So KLM is making somewhat better time than Lightgod is going in here. He's going to be facing the boss first. Gemini is one of the bosses that you can kill fairly quickly if you've got the right strats. Because you can shoot both Gemini clones at the same time, and their iframes don't overlap. So you can deal kind of twice as much damage as you could to a normal boss. Both runners... KLM actually gets hit by Gemini Man, but it's not a problem. Both runners manage to kill him with enough health left to remain standing. So that is not an issue for either one of them. KLM slightly ahead, Lightgod slightly behind, but Buster only is a long race. Anyone could take the lead here. Not sure why the aspect ratios are off. I think I'm going to try to stretch. Unfortunately, I'm going to try to stretch KLM's screen. I don't quite know how to do that. So they're both moving into Shadow Man stage. It's very kind of them to take the same route. That way we can tell kind of who's ahead. This is going to be the first fight against Breakman. There are 4 of these in the run. And generally, it's a test of how quickly you can mash. KLM, a pretty good masher, manages to make it out of there fairly quickly, and Lightgod is out also as well. This is probably the best room in the game. If you fire your shots early enough, if you know where the enemies are going to come from, you can deal damage to them so that they don't have time to lag up the game. So you'll see them firing much earlier than they possibly need to, maybe even before the enemies are on screen, to just kind of deal damage or kill the opponents before they show up, which reduces lag, and it looks really, really cool. KLM's in the section of the run with Parasues. There's no good way to deal with these guys, so you just have to either wait for them to pass you by or shoot them. If you've got Top Man, you can take a really risky strategy. If you've got the Magnet Beam, you can take a slightly safer strategy. But since we're doing Buster only, there is actually nothing else you can do other than, you know, shooting them or ducking under them. This is the Shadow Man fight. Shadow Man is not weak to Buster, so they're going to have to hit him 28 times. What he's going to do, he's going to bounce 3 times and either throw 2 blades at you or he's going to slide at you. So the runners tend to want to react to the slide, because it's hard to react when he actually starts his attack, so you want to treat him as though he's going to slide. The blades don't do too much damage, the body actually does a lot of damage. So KLM finishes up with no problems. Lightgod finishes him also with no problems. Both runners very, very competent at this fight, not having any trouble at all. So they're going to get the Shadow Blade, which is a very, very useful weapon. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to use it, because this is Buster only. KLM's going to Needleman, one of the shorter stages, with a boss that actually some people take on Buster only during their any % runs. And that is what KLM is going to be doing as well. Lightgod going to Needleman too. This is just perfect as far as timing goes. There's not too much to say about this stage. With Buster or with Magnet Beam, the first half of the stage is not too hard to move through. KLM gets out below the prissy dragonfly. There's a dragonfly that can knock you off that ladder and do some damage to you. It's considered very, very, very swag to avoid it. So we'll see if Lightgod can do the same. Oh, he gets hit by the prissy dragonfly. No shame in that. It happens to everyone except for Prissy and KLM, I guess. KLM coming up on the section with a bunch of Hammer Joes. He takes some damage there. There's not really a problem with taking a bunch of damage here. You don't want to take too much. Needleman can still surprise you. KLM looks like he's going to try to kill the Crusher, and he does. You can only shoot him when his eyes are open and he's jumping. And KLM puts some very, very precise shots in there to take care of the Crusher. He's now up against Needleman, and Lightgod is going to let the Crusher jump over him, which is a much safer strat. Doesn't require as precise shooting or taking any damage. KLM taking some body damage from Needleman. Not really a problem. It seems like he's doing okay. There are kind of 3 things Needleman can do. He can either jump really high, throw 4 needles, jump really low, throw 4 needles, or he can jump towards you and try to poke you with his head. If he pokes you with his head, it does actually a lot of damage, but it's fairly easy to dodge. You jump out of the way or you slide out of the way. There are any number of things you can do. Lightgod looks like he's having a very fast fight. The 2 runners might actually be evened up after this fight. It got very, very close all of a sudden. Lightgod finished that off a little bit faster than KLM did. I think we can chalk that up to RNG. You know, if Needleman feels like jumping really high every single time, there's not a lot you can do about it. So both runners are now done with 3 Robot Masters, and they're within 7 seconds of each other. KLM's going to Top Man. Lightgod's going to Top Man. Both these runners using the same route. Once again, doesn't matter. Once again, I'm really happy they're doing it. It makes my job a little easier. Top Man's one of the laggier stages in the game. It is, however, one of the easier stages to do with Buster only. The current world record route of this game is set with a top first route. So it's definitely possible to go through here. KLM taking a different strategy on that top spinner fellow than Lightgod is. Lightgod opting to hang from the ladder and shoot him, and KLM just kind of going up to him and blasting him. KLM having to go through a bunch of dozers here, which lag the screen. but KLM manages to defeat them before they hit him. Dozers are one of the most notorious enemies in this game, for sometimes their hitboxes show up, sometimes they don't. KLM going up against the first mini-boss, he beats him in three jumps. He defeats the cat. Lightgod takes 4 jumps to do it. It requires 10 shots from your buster right to the lower lip of this cat, I think, is where the hitbox is. So KLM's gaining some time. This is KLM's route when he's doing any percent. He goes through the stage buster only, so he's got the strategy. I'm not sure what Lightgod's any percent route is. He might do Magnet first, or he might do Top first, or he might do Gemini first. Either way, it doesn't seem like he's quite got the buster only skill at this level that KLM does, because KLM has managed to make up, has managed to put a lot of distance between himself and Lightgod. KLM's making it to top man. You only need to hit this guy 14 times. He is weak to buster. So KLM's going to stay close, take the hits where he needs to, because both runners have plenty of health. It's definitely possible to just keep firing and not worry about what top man's doing, not worry about getting hit. So KLM finishes in 3 cycles. Let us see how Lightgod is doing. And both runners are done with top man. KLM's moving on to Magnet Man. Probably the most popular stage for intermediate speedrunners to do first with buster only. I'm not sure if KLM ever did this route, but it's easy enough to do. Magnet Man's easy to beat with buster. But Lightgod is diverging. He's going to Hardman first. So Lightgod is going to want to despawn these bees, because if the bees, or I guess the big hornets, if they end up dropping the little hive that they're carrying, 5 bees come out and lag the game immeasurably. Everyone's telling me to sing, even though the Magnet Man music is not on stream, so I'm not quite sure what you're all talking about. But that's fine. I forgive you. I forgive you all. Lightgod using the second required instance of Rush Coil within the 8 Robot Masters. That makes... I think that's only the second. I think there are only 2 that you need to do. KLM is waiting for the Yoku blocks here. There are Yoku blocks in this section of the game. I think someone's in my apartment. It's fine. I think there are Yoku blocks. There are Yoku blocks in this section, which if you're playing the game not buster only and you've got the rush jet, you can just fly right over them. It's no problem, but here you can see KLM kind of has to jump on them, do the thing. Lightgod getting through the dozers with no problems at all, which is kind of rare. But now you see KLM getting to Magnet Man. His stage is a little bit shorter, I guess, than Hardman's stage. As you can see, the buster's doing 2 damage apiece, so KLM only needs to shoot him 14 times as opposed to normal 28. We want to see Magnet Man stay on the ground here, because if he jumps up in the air, you obviously can't shoot him. Magnet Man can't jump that high. KLM has no problems taking out Magnet Man. And Lightgod takes out Breakman, which is pretty good. He'll be moving on to the boss fight very shortly. Hardman's one of the trickier boss fights, certainly with buster only, for no other reason that he does a lot of damage if he hits you with his body. So let's see how Lightgod does here. When he lands on the ground, you freeze, you're invulnerable, which is what makes this fight... Or you're not invulnerable, you can't move, which is what makes this fight take so long. But if you just take the hits, and you keep rapid fire mashing on Hardman, you're probably going to make it out of here alive, as long as you don't get hit by his body. That does a ton of damage, and there's not much you can do. If you get hit by that, it might just totally end your run. That's a kill for Lightgod, so now we can see KLM doing the despawns on the bees here in the first part of Hardman's stage. Alright, KLM's opting to mash the monkeys down. It's possible to dodge past them, and that's what he's doing with the second one. But the first one, he decided to kill all the way, which takes a lot of mashing, which KLM is perfectly capable of. Lightgod is going to Snake Man stage, which benefits a lot from the use of Rush Jet, especially in the second half. and because he's not allowed to use rush jet because this is Buster only, we're gonna see how well he can do with that. KLM coming up against the dozers, he's got absolutely no problem. The hitboxes were very kind to him. Lightgod has to mash down these snakeheads, just one of the many perils that can be avoided if you use rush jet in this stage. And he's going to be coming up to the long room with the pole vaulters here. Let's see how he does. He gets hit by that pole, which is unfortunate. These enemies are very hard to dodge. They require some kind of timing, and if you miss it, then you're gonna get bonked. Apparently, I took the wrong robot master off the wrong list, which is fine. Ah, this is good. Okay. Lightgod coming up to another one of these snakeheads that he's got to buster down. He does it in only a couple hits, doesn't take any extraneous damage. It's totally fine. Lightgod is now coming up to one of the harder sections of the stage. If you've got the rush jet, you can kind of fly over the entire thing, and it's no problem. If you don't have the rush jet, you have to improvise. Well, not improvise. You have to go along the platforms as they come. There are definitely people in my apartment now. This is wild. There's a lot of lag in this section. There are tons of platforms going up, these bullets scrolling past you, so it's entirely possible for your inputs to just not matter, and then you might fall into a pit. But Lightgod's not having any problems. He does a daring jump over that bullet. That's pretty intense. He's going into Snake Man. KLM's starting Snake Man stage right now. It's not a super hard boss fight, especially if Snake Man decides to play nice. Looks like he's charging right at Lightgod, doing some body damage. Definitely not what Lightgod wants to happen, but tossing snakes lags the game, so you kind of have to make a choice. It's like, do I want him to lag the game, or do I want him to charge into me and do a bunch of damage? But Lightgod makes it out of the boss fight with plenty of health to spare. There we go. So it looks like at this point KLM is somewhat ahead, but once again, this is Buster only. Anything can change when you get to the Doc Robot stages. KLM's making his way through the stage, still getting through the easy part, about to be in the rush jet required, essentially, section pretty quickly. Lightgod's going to move to Sparkman, so we'll be doing Magnet Man last. So after he's done with Sparkman, Magnet Man, and KLM's done with both his Robot Masters, we will know who is ahead and who is behind. Sparkman... Magnet Beam is helpful in this stage, but it's definitely not required. This is probably one of the easier stages to do Buster only. You don't want to do this as your first stage during an any % run, because Sparkman is not weak to the Mega Buster. But the stage itself is not going to be too hard. KLM jumping on these cloud platforms, not having any problems so far. Lightgod coming up on a platform section. This is a section that can trip some runners up. If you lose your concentration, you are going to miss the platforms that you want to hit. And Lightgod actually gets bopped by this column of electricity. That's going to do a lot of damage to him. And we'll see what he decides to do. He wants to kill the dozer rather than going through it. Some people go through the dozer because it's quicker, but Lightgod's electing to kill it so that he doesn't take any more damage. Sparkman in an any % run of this game, he's probably not going to kill you because you'll have something that can take him out pretty quickly, but you have to hit him 28 times in this particular category. Lightgod electing to destroy the junk block. That's going to remove some lag for him, which is always helpful. KLM's going up against Snake Man. He's pretty low on health, but unless he makes a mistake, he's just going to be able to mash the boss down. Lightgod is moving into the boss's room as we speak, and KLM takes out Snake Man. No problem. Lightgod is now in the boss room. Let's see if he gets a good pattern. He does. You want to get Sparkman at a position where you can shoot him while standing on the ground. You don't want to have to jump to hit him, because then you're going to be able to get less shots off. And this is what you don't want. You don't want him to stand on the center column. But Lightgod is handling it. Does very, very well with that. And now both runners only have one Robot Master left to defeat. So KLM's moving through the first part of this stage, and Lightgod is just about to select his 8th Robot Master here. Now here comes the Magnet song. Unfortunately, I'm not going to sing that for you guys because I'm a little drunk and I'm afraid I would embarrass myself.
Do it.
I can't.
Do it.
I literally can't. Oh boy.
Your viewers are demanding it, I assume.
They're all demanding it, yeah. No, everyone is demanding it. You're definitely right. Magnet Man, he has a magnet plan, and he'll smack you with the back of his magnet hand. His stage is filled up with Yoku blocks, and his weapon is unorthodox. First you jump over pits, then you dish out the hits until your brother quits. Jump through the floor which splits, kill all the springy guys and all the walking eyes. Don't get demoralized, be sure to chain your slides. He attracts, he pulls you close, damage boost, then shoot him, he'll be toast. Or he'll jump and you will get the slow pattern. There it is. I hope you're all very, very happy that that particular thing happened. Lightgod is going over the Yoku block section, and KLM is in Sparkman, just demolishing him. KLM is definitely ahead at this juncture, but we'll see what happens. KLM is done with the 8 Robot Masters in under 20 minutes, which is fantastic. So KLM's moving to the dock robos, and like, there are people in my apartment making a ton of noise. It's fine though. So once again, Magnet Man's very easy to defeat with the Buster. He takes double damage, and we want him to stay on the ground rather than jumping. Lightgod's getting pretty good luck, and then we get a jump. It's fine though. And Lightgod is done in under 20 minutes and 30 seconds. Very, very close. Very, very good job from both of these racers. Alright, KLM is choosing to go to Dock Shadow first. And Lightgod... Alright. That seemed like it might have been a soft lock or a hard lock or a computer freeze or something. Either way, pretty worrying. But KLM's making it through the dark platform lag room with no problem at all. You want to have as much health as possible coming into Dock Wood, which is going to be the first dock robot that both of these folks will be facing. And Lightgod dies on the spikes. That's the first death we've seen this race. It's not too bad. It's very close to the start of the stage, but Lightgod is losing time now where he can't really afford to, with KLM, so dominant in this race so far. Woodman is probably one of the hardest fights in Buster Only. He's definitely meant to be beaten with the needle, because he attacks you in many unblockable ways and undodgeable ways. So KLM's going to use one of his E-Tanks. That's fine. This fight is what E-Tanks were made for, and KLM gets the jump over the leaf shield. That's what you want to do. You want to get in between these leaves falling from the ceiling and dodge the shield that Woodman throws at you. So it looks like KLM's not going to have any problems defeating Woodman. He's only got a couple shots left. And KLM shows us why he's got the #1 seed. Lightgod unfortunately dying again, falling down in the lag room. And he dies a third time, which means he's going to game over intentionally to kind of get all his lives back. Because you don't want to die, you don't want to beat Woodman and then get halfway through the stage and then die again, game over, and have to defeat Woodman a second time. You definitely don't want to do that. So Lightgod is going to be going into the first half of the stage with a serious time differential to make up. KLM making it through a very tricky room of this game with no real problems. He's still got plenty of health left. He's going to be able to kill this springy fellow. And he's going to move on to Heatman. Heatman's definitely a tricky boss to beat. It's possible to get 2 hits per cycle on him, but that does mean that you're going to be going through 14 cycles, where he throws fire at you and then dashes at you. So what KLM's going to try to do is hit him right as he lands, and then hit him a second time, which is going to do 2 damage per cycle, which is going to be the best thing you can do. There's no real way to speed this fight up. He will go either fast or slow, and there's nothing you can do to determine that. Looks like KLM was taking a couple of hits, which is not a problem. He's still got health approximately equal to the boss. But I think KLM's going to be playing the rest of this fight pretty cautiously. KLM's actually getting hit a couple times. If he gets hit a few more times, this might actually be over for him, and he'd have to do the second half of the stage over, yeah, he'd have to do the second half of the stage over again, which is not something anyone wants to see. But KLM, of course, doesn't do that. He defeats Heatman with no problems. Let's see how Lightgod is doing against Woodman. He's backed up in the corner. He's not going to be able to dodge this one, but he's going to slide out through, grab an E-Tank. Because they're on the Japanese version, he's not going to worry about taking double damage, once when he pauses and once when he unpauses. So he's doing fine here. And he's right by the door. He does the final bit of damage to Woodman, and he's through. So now Lightgod's got full health to go through the parachute section, not a problem. KLM takes a slip and a fall on Gemini Man stage. This is the first stage of Gemini Man. Definitely not an easy screen to go through. Lots of lag, lots of enemies, and little teeny tiny platforms. So that is unfortunately going to lose some time for KLM, but once again, like with Lightgod's first death, it's not going to put him too far behind because he is still very close to the start of the stage. Lightgod makes it through the parachute section with absolutely no problems, and we're going to see him go into Heatman with full health. Very, very good. KLM's jumping down. A bit of strategy you want to do here. You want to get 3 tadpoles spawn. That's the max that can spawn. So if you spawn 3 and then you shoot other eggs, other tadpoles won't spawn and they won't lag the game and you won't have to kill them. KLM getting beautiful, beautiful tadpole spawns. So he's having no problems with this section. Except for that one hit he took. That's basically a textbook Gemini tadpole eggs screen. He's going to be facing Flashman right here. Flashman is a... Sorry, the people in my apartment are making fun of me. It's fine.
No, we're making fun of the fact that we don't understand.
Okay.
You're good.
Alright, so on the United States version of this game, when Flashman freezes you in place, he freezes you for a long time and then shoots about 50 bullets, one of which is definitely going to hit you. On the Japanese version, he freezes you for a moment and shoots 1 bullet. Don't know why it's like this, but Lightgod takes out Heatman with very little problems, just as KLM defeats Flashman. So it looks like Lightgod is about 1 Doc Robot behind. Not an insurmountable lead, for sure. KLM's opting to lose a life here because you do need a lot of health for this next section. There are a lot of damage boosts you have to take. Lightgod is opting to go the Sparkman second route. And this is the only time other than Gamma that you have to switch to a weapon that is not the Mega Buster to defeat that little dude on the ladder. There's actually been a lot of controversy in the Buster-only tournament over the past couple days. A skip was found that enables you to get past that enemy without switching to another weapon, but for the purposes of this tournament, we are keeping the rule set the same, where you can switch Gemini Laser or Shadow Blade to defeat that little guy. So, after the tournament's over, look for that to change. KLM is making his way to Bubble Man. He's very, very close, and he's got a decent amount of health. Bubble Man can trip you up and do a lot of damage to you when you're not expecting it, but KLM's an experienced player, and he should be able to handle it. Lightgod, on the other hand, is going to Metal Man. If you stay far away from him, it's possible to do damage without getting hit that much. If you get close, it's possible to hit him very quickly, so the runners will try to find an equilibrium. It looks like Lightgod's staying pretty far away, but he's doing good damage. If you get good predictions, if you can tell when he's going to jump and how high, you shouldn't have a problem doing too much damage to him pretty quickly. But it's possible for him to just troll you and do whatever he wants. KLM on Bubble Man actually taking an E-Tank. And that's fine. KLM's got a couple of E-Tanks. I'm not keeping track because that's very tricky. But KLM takes out Bubble Man, just as KLM takes out Metal Man. Alright, so Lightgod is going to drop down here. There are a couple cool despawns he can do of these red columns of electricity. You can despawn them, and then they won't go back and forth, and they won't hit you. And Lightgod's doing both the despawns, just as KLM gets into Sparkman stage. Lightgod getting a couple kills to avoid the lag, and doing a third despawn. That one's rarely seen. He's actually going to do a 4th despawn. He's getting rid of all these columns and not taking any damage at all on this screen. If you worry about your fight with Quickman, which it's perfectly reasonable to worry about your fight with Quickman, it's very hard and he can do a lot of damage to you, then this might be the strategy you want to take. Alright, so Lightgod's going up against Quickman right now, right as KLM's going into Metal Man. Quickman, one of the definite roadblocks if you're playing this game casually, doing any percent. If he bonks into you, he does 8 damage. That's a third of your health. If he hits you with his boomerang, it only does 2 damage, but Lightgod takes a body hit. Let's see how he can finish this. He's actually going to an E-Tank here. We'll see if it will be enough. Definitely don't want to die to this guy because then you don't have that E-Tank anymore. KLM staying far away as well from Metal Man, doing a decent amount of damage. Not seeming to have any problems with that. Lightgod's doing damage, taking bits and pieces of Quickman's health off. It looks like it's going to be enough. Oh, it's really close. He's down to 3 health. If Mega Man gets hit by another boomerang, he's done. Lightgod takes a hit, and he unfortunately dies. So Lightgod's going to have to start that fight over, as KLM just gets closer and closer to him within the Sparkman stage. That's a real shame. Like I said, this fight is a roadblock. You want to get hit by the boomerang so that you're in invincibility frame so that Quickman doesn't hit you. But sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you're at 2 health, and a boomerang hit will kill you. KLM's making it through this part of the stage without despawning all of the columns that Lightgod did. And he's making his way to the boss room, killing that block of junk, which is going to reduce lag, let him get through the end of the stage a bit quicker. We'll see how Lightgod's doing. It looks good, but who knows? Lightgod manages to finish. He gets the kill. Good. And now KLM is in the Quickman fight. We'll see how he does. I didn't see which stage Lightgod picked, but maybe he picked Gemini. So we'll be all matched up, and both runners will be doing Needle 4th. That is indeed the case. KLM's not having any problems with this fight at all. He's definitely, you know, just keeping his buster going against this foe. But it looks like KLM is now an entire stage ahead. This is going to be a big gap for Lightgod to have to make up. Kyle's pointing out in the chat that KLM would have been killed by another body hit, but he managed to recover and not get hit by Quickman. By Quickman's body, which of course does 8 damage. KLM's in Needleman's stage. There are a couple instances in this stage where you have to use rush items, which is just something that happens. You have to use a coil here, you have to use a coil on the next stage, and the next stage. KLM picks up an extra life, which, you know, in a category like this, definitely could help him, or could hurt him if he needs to grind out a game over. Lightgod's taking the upper route through these tadpole eggs, but he manages to get 3 spawns so that he doesn't have to shoot through the spawning tadpoles. Both of these guys are going into the first Robot Master, I'm sorry, the first Doc Robot in their stage at about the same time. Airman control you with the bugles. He can either give you, you know, he can give you a good pattern where you can hit him with a bunch of buster shots, or he can give you a bad pattern where that's just not going to happen. It looks like KLM's getting a decent pattern. He does about half of the damage that is needed to defeat Airman. And he kills him before he launches a second salvo of bugles. So KLM gets a very, very good fight here. He's only got 1 Doc Robot remaining. And Lightgod as well, defeating Flashman with no real problems. Lightgod is low on health, so we might see him take a death here. That's fine. Lightgod has lives left. Good. Okay, I wasn't sure if he was going to game over there. That's fine. KLM, as you can see, is riding the rush jet over this entire stage. You have to. There's black space everywhere. You can't run across here. And jumping off the top of the stage, it reduces lag, and it reduces the amount of ammo you use from the rush jet, so it's best of both worlds. KLM's coming up to the last section of the stage, which normally is done with the Shadow Blade or with the snake. But he's doing with the Buster. He gets hit by the invisible giant Methead, which is fine. You know, these things happen. Lightgod is making his way closer to Bubble Man. He's got plenty of health, it looks like, to defeat this boss. KLM is going to get a health pickup right before he goes into the boss, which is Crash Man, or Clash Man. Depends which version of the game you're playing. So we'll see how Lightgod does on this particular boss here. KLM looks like he's got a really good strategy for defeating this guy. It looks like Buster does twice as much damage as anything else does, and KLM, under 34 minutes, manages to take out all the 8 Robot Masters. He's now going into Breakman, where he's of course going to have a Breakman split. The people in my apartment have definitely just taken a picture. And KLM's done with the Breakman split, but doesn't seem like he has a split for it. That's kind of weird. I don't know, it's probably just a glitch. Lightgod takes out Bubble Man. He's an entire Doc Robot stage behind KLM. So KLM's going to have to make some serious mistakes for Lightgod to catch up here, because Needleman is definitely the longest of the Doc Robot stages. But KLM is moving on to Wily's Castle. The first level's not too terribly tricky with Buster. The boss takes a little doing, but I don't think KLM's going to have a problem with it. Like I said, he is the #1 seed coming into this tournament. Lightgod switching into Rush Coil and switching out. You don't want to have to shoot this guy with the Rush Coil, even though you're in Rush Coil before and after you face him. We want to adhere as closely as possible to the spirit of Buster only. KLM's going to slide on these spikes. It's a pretty risky move, but if the penguins give you a good pattern, then you can definitely do it. You just don't want to run out of iframes when you're on top of those spikes. Let's see how Lightgod does against Doc Air. See if he gets a good pattern or not. Looks like he's doing fine, getting a lot of good hits in. He's taking a couple hits, but that's fine. That's definitely to be expected. KLM using Rush Coil here. Let's see how he does. He switches out immediately, and he's going for a very, very pure strat where you don't kill this guy with Rush Coil and you don't go over him with Rush Jet. And it looks like he's giving up and going to Rush Jet. That's fine. That is definitely allowed by the rules. It's hard to come up with a guaranteed rule set that applies to every situation. But KLM is going into the boss room now, where he's going to face the turtles. Let's get Airman out of there. There are 5 turtles that got shot out. Once you defeat all of them, the boss dies. There's a decent amount of lag in this stage, especially if you fire 3 shots off. You got the whirlpools coming up, you got the turtle, and you got the turtle maker. But KLM gets a lucky, I would say, shot. Manages to take out the turtle maker with very little problems. Lightgod's going through the very last part of Needleman stage. It's fairly easy if you take it slowly. But if you get risky and you end up dying here, you have to go through the entire Rush Jet section again, which can, that can take a minute off your run. KLM is making his way to the Yellow Devil, which is another big time differentiator between runners of similar skill. If you can kill him in 4 cycles with Buster only, you're going to save a lot of time over someone who can kill him in 5. It is possible to do this section Buster only. Normally you have to spawn Rush Jet and have him carry you over these spikes, but if you get hit by the bees, you can use the iframes of the bees to carry you over the pits. It's lovely, it hurts a lot, but it does get you over. KLM doesn't have too much health left, but this is what your E-Tanks are for. This is kind of the last fight where you would have to use your E-Tanks, aside from something going wrong in the Robot Masters. And Lightgod, in under 38 minutes, is done with his Doc Robots. I don't know where Lightgod's robot heads went. Oh, here they are. I found them. Cool, sorry about that. This This restreaming thing is kind of trickier than it looks. KLM's taking a bunch of damage, but I know he has at least one E-tank left. And he's doing a good amount of damage to the Yellow Devil. Not enough to kill him in 3 cycles. Let's see if he can do it in 4. KLM gets the good jumps and he manages to defeat Yellow Devil. This is going to put KLM 2 Wily stages ahead of Lightgod. This is a pretty decisive lead right here. We'll see if KLM goes for the KLM jump. No, he doesn't. KLM jump is when you jump in between bullet 2 and 3 coming out of that thing, and KLM decides not to do the trick that bears his name, which is fine. KLM's grabbing an E-tank here in a race situation. That's fine. That's definitely something you want to do. So we'll see what kind of strategy Lightgod goes for with this guy here. He's going right to the rush jet. He's not messing around with the rush coil. The totally pure strategy is to rush coil up to the platform and jump directly in front of that Hammer Joe to stand on that pixel of ledge that you have before the Hammer Joe will knock you off, mashing him down or damage boosting through him. And that's tricky and it's definitely not required. KLM is now in the clones room. KLM, the top clone is always the real one first. Will KLM do it in 1 cycle? He does it in 1 cycle. KLM is a beast at that room. He's never had, well, he may have had, but since I've seen him, he's never had any problems with the clones. He gets them done in 1 cycle, typically 2 cycles, sometimes. Oh, did he not? Well, it's named after him, Kyle. Kyle Precise is telling me that the KLM jump was not invented by KLM, that it was popularized by him because he tried it for about 30 seconds in a race, and he kept getting destroyed by it. So that's why we call it the KLM jump, I guess. Other people know much more about the lore of this race. I've never even run this category. I'm commenting on this on a lark. Everyone be sure to go to twitch.tv/KylePrecise for all sorts of history and, you know, actual knowledge about this game. But for the time being, KLM is in the refights. So he's going to be defeating the 8 Robot Masters once again with Justice Buster. Kyle's telling me I'm doing great. That's good to hear. I'm glad the master of MM3 history is telling me that I'm doing great. KLM finishes up Snake Man, moving to Needle Man. We'll see how Lightgod does against the Yellow Devil. We'll see how many cycles. We'll see how many cycles he can do this fight in. KLM's getting a very good pattern with Needle Man. He's doing short jumps and headbutts. Needleman did not do anything other than short jumps and headbutts. That may be the best Needleman pattern I've ever seen in my life. Lightgod going on his 2nd cycle, getting a lot of hits in. Very, very good. Not taking any damage at all from these bouncing balls. They're really hard to dodge. In the any percent category, you should get this guy down in 1 or maybe 2 cycles, so you never have to worry about the bouncing balls. But Lightgod has the dodges, and he made it out of there without taking any damage here. He might be able to finish this fight without using an E-tank, which would put him slightly up. All right, he is doing fine. Very good, very good. A fight about the same length as that of KLM. So really good devil fights by both these runners. Very instructive. Definitely follow both of these runners. If they can beat the Yellow Devil with Buster only, you know, in that amount of time, they are definitely worth a follow. Definitely worth watching. How's everyone doing? Thanks, Kyle, for the links. I would post links in your chat, but remember how I'm not allowed to? Yeah. Alright, KLM is getting close to the end of the refights. He's making through it with... He's getting through it with pretty good time. English is hard, guys. So Lightgod is going to go under this crusher. He's going to get hit by it, unfortunately, and this crusher you can't do anything but be hit by. He is essentially undodgeable. Scholars say that someone has dodged him once, but it rarely happens. KLM's losing a bunch of health, but he does make it out of the fight. That was very, very close. If you die in the refights, it's not a big problem. You respawn in the refight room. You don't have to do the fights all over again. But you definitely don't want to be doing it. Lightgod getting a bunch of hits in, but he only kind of does half of the health of the clone, and he's going to have to guess for the second one. He guesses correctly. That is the middle clone. And he manages to get a pretty quick kill against the clones. Not as quickly as KLM with his 1 cycle, but he gets a 2 cycle, which is probably as good as you can hope for. So Lightgod is now on the refight stage, but KLM is a good amount of the way through the refight stage. And he's actually done, so he's probably going to leave the stage before Lightgod gets to the refights. So now KLM's only got one big challenge left, and that challenge is right here, right now. It's the Wily Machine. There are a couple very easy strategies. Well, very easy. I've never done them, but lots of people have done them. There are a couple strategies for dealing with this guy in the any % run that obviously do not apply here. They require lots of snakes, or they require shadow blades, or they require rush jet. But it is definitely possible to beat this guy without any of those tools. KLM destroys the cannon at the bottom, and he's gonna try to get as many hits as possible in. He takes a damage boost and then jumps into Wily, shooting rapidly. Normally you can hope for about 3 hits per jump. KLM got 4 right there, but if you do the damage boost strategy, you can get as many as you can mash, basically. Lightgod's pretty low on health coming up on Needleman, but he makes it out fine. KLM's got the Wily Machine down to very low health, and he does have 1 E-Tank left after this, which should be more than enough, because if you need an E-Tank to beat Gamma, you're not in this tournament. You're just literally not in this tournament, sorry. And KLM's got 1 hit left on the Wily Machine, and he makes it through, and now it's essentially just a victory lap, making his way to defeating Gamma. Meanwhile, Lightgod taking out Snake Man without much trouble at all. Lightgod going against Sparkman right now as KLM moves into the very final fight of the run. Now, Gamma was programmed so that he doesn't take any damage from Buster in either of his forms, so you are allowed to defeat him however you want. So people are going to use normal any % strats to beat him. And it looks like KLM might get a sub 47, which is an absolutely unbelievable time, and he does. That's GG for KLM. Fantastic fight. Absolutely wonderful run by KLM, getting a sub 47. That's much better than most runners' PBs. And KLM pulls it off in a race like it ain't no thing. And Lightgod's still making his way through the refights. He's got a couple left to do. It looks like he's got 4. I saw 4 blinking lights there. Lightgod making it through Gemini with no problem at all. Gemini's got interesting AI. If you shoot and he's on the ground, he will jump. So it's very, very easy to manipulate him in his second form, as Lightgod showed. Kyle Precise points out that KLM's race time here, 46.54. What's 84? There are no 84 seconds. 46.54 is better than every other runner's PB except for Fast at CC and KLM himself. So this is, one of the best times you can hope for. Lightgod must have known this going in, that he was going to have to pull out his A game to beat KLM, who is one of the most dominant runners in this category for sure, and in the game at large. Lightgod just made a couple mistakes, and KLM really kept the pressure on, which is why the race turned out the way it did. Lightgod missed the 3 cycle here, unfortunately. Has to do 1 hit on the 4th cycle. But he's now on his last Robot Master. It's Shadow Man, which, I have trouble beating him in any percent, but once you practice Buster only enough, you eventually get good enough at Shadow Man that you really, you don't have any problems defeating him. You take his blades, if he hits you with his blades, and you dodge his slides every time, and he can't defeat you. The mysterious people in my apartment, one of them is looking over my shoulder, and now he's giggling, which is kind of embarrassing if you think about it. So Lightgod is done with the refights, grabs the extra life, and makes his way to the Wily Machine. Let's see how this fight goes. Lightgod taking no damage at all in this first segment of the fight. It's definitely possible to dodge these big spinning cotton balls. And Lightgod shows you how it's done. Takes the damage boost. He's going for the fast strat as well from KLM. He doesn't pull it off. He only managed to do 1 or 2 points of damage here. If you do kind of a safe strat, you can pull off 3 damage per hit. But that's what he's going for. He keeps going for the risky strats, which I appreciate. He's got the E-tanks to back it up, so, why not go for it? This fight is laggy, so you tend to have a lot of time to sort of decide what to do. But Lightgod used the E-tank in inopportune time there, and he doesn't manage to jump at all. Misses all sorts of damage from that time. Or from that cycle, rather. Looks like Lightgod has the basics of this strategy, but hasn't quite practiced it enough to make it, sort of a workable thing, unfortunately. But if he plays it carefully from here on out, he's going to be able to avoid using another E-tank. He's down to 1 health. Oh, he's going to go for the E-tank. That's a smart move. You don't want to die here and then have to do this fight with no E-tanks. That would take all night. Lightgod is done with the Wily Machine, and he's going to be moving on to the victory lap. KLM using the strategy of putting images over your stream output. That's pretty good. That's an advanced strat. Next time, try the strat of fixing your aspect ratio, KLM. Whoa! Yep, there it is. There it is. I said it. And like I said, you can beat Gamma the normal way. So he's gonna use his Shadow Blades. He's gonna grab Rush Jet, get up there. That's kind of the more pure strat. And he's gonna miss the top spin. He's gonna have to come back and try it a second time. And that's a GG for Lightgod with a 52:29. Certainly a respectable time, especially in a race. But KLM is certainly going to move on from here. Let's get that link from Kyle Precise. We can start looking at brackets. Everyone likes brackets, right? All right, so what we're going to see from this race, we're going to see this race here, KLM versus Lightgod. KLM is going to advance. And he's going to face the winner of this race, Kyle Precise versus Tired Monkey. We'll see who wins that. The loser of that will move, face KLM, and then whoever wins that race is going to face either Kyle Precise or Tired Monkey in the finals. So we've kind of got 3 runners left in this tournament. It's going to be KLM, it's going to be Tired Monkey, it's going to be Kyle Precise. KLM is working with a loss, so he's going to be coming from a disadvantageous position, I guess. But then, how about you freaking... Guys, streaming is hard. Are you just not going to show anything else? There we go. So yeah, winner of Tired Monkey and Kyle Precise goes here. Winner of KLM versus whoever loses this match is going here. And then we're going to get to the finals, folks, where hopefully it will be commentated by someone who's a little bit more competent than I am. But I thank you all for watching my stream. I really appreciate it. And I am now going to cut stream. Congratulations to KLM, and congratulations to Lightgod87 for making it so far. Just making it into the finals is a good achievement. And losing to KLM, there's definitely no shame in that. He's, like I said, one of the more dominant runners in this game, and this category especially. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful evening.